Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing an incredibly cool Pokemon in the Open Great League that received 2 buffs, and as a result, can now output some truly hilarious damage. The Pokemon in question, Shadow Donphan. Mudslap has better energy generation and better damage this season, and Trailblaze, the move to boost that damage even more, got even cheaper. I paired it up with a Goodra and a Spark Lantern because I did want to test out Lantern after the Surf rework and had some very good sets. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Shadow Donphan in action in the Open Great League. Tough lead in the first match, Shadow Donphan versus Low Kicks, the battle of the Trailblaze users. I'm forced to switch out because they resist ground. I bring in the Goodra. Goodra still doesn't have a comfortable matchup versus Low Kicks. I tank the X-Scissor, but it deals heavy damage. I fire back with the Aqua Tail, but Low Kicks is able to win switch as the Sucker Punch picks up the KO. I'm going to fully wait the timer and bring in Lantern. If they make it to a move, I'm fine absorbing that energy. They actually don't get to their Trailblaze. Out comes Clodsire. This is obviously a terrible matchup for Spark Lantern. I'm going to throw the Surf, which does have extra damage this season, and now it's Shadow Donphan time. In the back is Dunsparce, a very bulky normal type. So let's see how this type neutral matchup plays out. I go for the Trailblaze. They're going to shield, and look at the Mudslaps. These Mudslaps do not look neutral. They look super effective. Dunsparce, knowing I'm going to shield, goes for the Rock Slide. Looks like a little bit of a BM there from the opponent, but watch this. Dunsparce going to try and make it to the Drill Run to pick up the knockout, but they don't get there. Shadow Donphan on a boosted Rampage at back-to-back Trailblazes. There's nothing the opponent can do. They let it through. Donphan mud slaps down, completely sweeping an endgame and taking the win. Nightmare lead in the next match. Opponent has a Chestnut, and I am ABA weak. I switch in my one counter, which is Goodra. They go for a superpower, and I cannot shield. I can't be down shields knowing they have a Chestnut. But the interesting thing is they are triple weak to Goodra. Them bringing in an Alolan Marowak shows they have no response to the Goodra. Goodra will make another Aqua Tail, so the opponent is forced to throw their Bone Club. And I see a potential win con in this match. A double shield from the opponent and a Mud Slap down from the Donphan could potentially allow me to knock out the Chestnut with some well-timed body slams. So I'm going to go for the full farm down here, shielding up as Shadow Bone would hit for massive damage. Donphan is very, very glassy. Opponent is going to bring in the Chestnut. Donphan gets the double up on the body slam, and I think this will be able to knock out. Body slam number 1, that's definitely going to do enough when I fire off body slam number 2 here. So we are finally able to get rid of the Chestnut. In the back, it's a Talonflame, and it's all over for the opponent as in comes Lantern. Surf does do more damage this season, but there's a cost, and that cost is Surf is now 7 to the first, so Lantern's pacing got even worse. Thunderbolt makes quick work of the Talonflame, and despite being core broken on the lead, that game ends in victory. Great lead in the next match, Shadow Donphan versus Clodsire. Clodsire going to switch out into Feraligatr, and this is one of the reasons why I had Spark on Lantern. The Feraligatr, and to be able to handle potential Mandibuzz as well. This Feraligatr is going to fire off that Hydro. Even being resisted, that does so much damage. Gator is so strong this season. Thunderbolts will be able to pick up the knockout. They can bring back in the Clodsire and outpace me here, but them throwing their energy is honestly great, because I can just bring back in the Shadow Donphan and just start ramping up this damage. In comes the Donphan in the back. Opponent has Pangoro, so they're actually running a team that I featured. Pangoro has insane speed, but what it does not have is bulk. Look at those Mud Slaps go. Oh my goodness. The poor Panda Bear going to be able to force shields from the Donphan, but Donphan with his energy lead is just going crazy. The Body Slam forces the final shield from the opponent. I'm going to shield back, and they should not be able to make it to another move. Boosted Mud Slap, especially from a Shadow Pokemon, is just terrifying. Back in comes the Clodsire. I get to fire off the boosted Trailblaze, and this Clodsire is just getting torn to shreds. Oh my goodness. They're able to make the last second move. Sludge Bomb picks up the KO, but I can send in Goodra, Dragon Breath down, and secure the win. Unfortunately, the tough leads return in the next match. Shadow Donphan into Mandibuzz. Terrible lead. Safe switch into Goodra. Mandibuzz is going to stay in and get some chip damage. This tells me they don't have an amazing response to Goodra. Dark Pulse will do some pretty solid damage. Out comes Gastrodon. Gastrodon is unfortunately a pretty good answer to this energy because since I'm not running Power Whip, they can actually survive both these moves. So I'm going to fire off another Aqua Tail. This does not knock out by any means. Opponent actually ends up shielding, which was a bit of a surprise to me. They're going to go for a full farm down there, exiting with a ton of energy, and I'll bring in Donphan. Donphan hit with the Earth Power. That connects, dealing substantial damage. And now I'm in a spot where I have to decide. I thought about letting it go and trying to Spark down, but the Mud Slaps would have done just way too much damage. I just have to hope that Lanturn can sweep, but if I saw one ground type, there's probably another in the back. Unfortunately, just hard counter City, and I will concede the match. We move to the next one, and the leads are not getting better. Shadow Donphan versus Shadow Dragonite. I save switch to Goodra. Dragonite stays to throw a move. This is honestly preferred for me, because look how low that Dragonite is now. I can Mud Slap that down later if I need to. Out comes Gastrodon. Clearly, someone must have made a video talking about the Flyer plus Ground archetype, because my goodness, is it everywhere. I'm going to be able to make another Aqua Tail. This will not be enough to knock out, but it will inflict some decent damage, and again, I get a shield. Gastrodons don't have to shield there. This one ended up shielding, and that works out. Earth Power last time did way too much damage, so I'm actually going to shield it this time. Opponent actually not going to make their next Earth Power. They could have thrown a Body Slam, but didn't. In comes the Dragonite, and I can pick up the knockout with the Body Slam. They shield. They must be weak in the back. That's the only reason you shield there, is if you're weak in the back. I'm going to pick up the knockout with the Body Slam in the back. There's our good friend Clodsire. And I can bank the Body Slam for later, and now send in Lanturn. One Earthquake does not knock out Lanturn. Even though with Spark it's a terrible matchup, I can survive that. They can never poison this thing down, and Surf with the extra damage will very comfortably put this into Body Slam range. The Surf will connect. That's very easily Body Slam range, and there's just nothing Clodsire can do. Clodsire cannot hold two moves regardless, so they have to try and go for an undercharged Stone Edge, which they do get the undercharge, which is nicely done, but Shadow Donphan has the Body Slam. So we basically see the same team twice in a row. First time at Mandibuzz, we weren't able to win. The second time has the Dragonite, and this time we are able to get the victory. Shadow Donphan versus Arctobax. I'm just going to farm up a bunch of energy with the Donphan. Opponent is going to fire off their Dragon Claw. And since Donphan is glassy, I'm going to be shielding everything. I can get a nice double up here, and this way I can win the ones. So unless they double shield, they're not going to shield. They're just going to let that through, and in comes Feraligatr. Here, I should have gone for the Trailblaze. I didn't realize I was one off the Trailblaze. Again, new Pokemon, new counts and whatnot, but I should have gone for the Trailblaze because then I could have got a boosted Mud Slap onto this Gator. But either way, it's not going to make a tremendous amount of difference. They can fire off their Hydro. That's very okay. They're firing off another Hydro as well. And again, that's why Lanturn ended up working out pretty nicely for me, which honestly surprised me quite a bit. In the back is Clodsire. We just chip with our Surf and then bring out the Goodra. And this game is absolutely over. There's just nothing the opponent can really do. Goodra in this matchup with my kind of weird IVs doesn't do as well, but it's still going to be able to put in some very nice work. I can farm up just shy of the back-to-back Aqua Tails. Aqua Tail very easily KOs here. They're going to commit the shield, and they have to try and potentially do a catch, but even if they do, it's not winning for them. They're going to switch into Feraligatr, and watch this. I can go for an undercharged Aqua Tail, and then Spark down, and then outpace. They realize what I've done, and they concede the match as soon as they see the Lanturn. We see a better lead in the next match, Shadow Donphan versus the Shadow Feraligatr. Donphan does win the twos. I end up switching into Goodra, and do my eyes deceive me? I see a Medicham in 2024. That is unbelievable. Counter has been nerfed, Psychic's been nerfed, and yet people are still trying to make Medicham work. The good news is Medicham is terrible. So the opponent, in sticking to this outdated strategy, has put themselves at a pretty significant competitive disadvantage. Medicham is going to fire off an Ice Punch. I really was questioning if I could get that farmed out or not. I decided against it. I'd rather just have the energy on the Donphan, because Donphan's energy is really, really good. In comes Feraligatr. The opponent throwing on alignment, giving me an entire Mud Slap for free. And this means that I actually don't have to switch out. Because they gave me the free Mud Slap, I now strictly outpace. They shield. If we've already seen Medicham, the most commonly paired Pokemon with Medicham would be Bastiodon. There's no way they're running that nerfed Pokemon as well, and they are! This opponent stuck in the past, and they're just gonna concede as Donphan completely runs through that team. Great lead in the next match. Shadow Donphan versus the Clodsire. Clodsire going to stay in for a little bit, send in the Shadow Feraligatr, and I respond with the Lantern. Even if they do have Crunch, Lantern is going to be able to withstand that damage, and this opponent is running Crunch. Thankfully, no debuff. I'm going to go for the Thunderbolt just to guarantee a shield or switch advantage, because I don't really need switch advantage, but if they want to play for it, I'm more than happy to take the shield advantage. In comes Claude. Claude could have thrown to knock me out, but instead, they actually choose to let me get the Surf off, and Surf does a lot of damage now. The pacing is terrible on Lantern, but it can output some nice damage when it gets to a move. Stone Edge picks up the KO, and it looks like this opponent is running a version of the team that we saw earlier. They are running the same mons, but just different movesets. And we've seen this story before. This poor panda is just getting farmed down with boosted Mud Slaps. This opponent opting for Crunch and Stone Edge over Ice Beam and Sludge Bomb, but the result is going to be the same, and that result is just Donphan completely taking over, getting the full farm down at the back-to-back body slams versus the Clodsire. And yeah, there's just nothing the opponent can do. They are going to commit the shield. I could have clicked the body slam, but I wasn't 100% sure it would have KO'd. But realistically, the game was over anyway, so I could just bring in the Goodra. Opponent will resign the match. Hopping into the next match, we have Shadow Donphan versus Cresselia. My team is triple weak to Cresselia. We actually have a Confusion Cresselia. Confusion Cresselia, not something you see super frequently. Oftentimes it's run with like fast move pressure teams in the back. We already did see one Bastiodon. Surely we're not going to be seeing another one. I will shield, because of course Grass Knot would easily KO. Out comes Shadow Victory Bell. I try and throw the body slam, but I make a massive mistake. I thought that I could live the Razor Leafs, but I should have just switched out. So that's a pretty big error on my part. The Aqua Tail will KO. I didn't want to take the damage on the Goodra in case it is going to be something like a Bastiodon in the back. And there it is. People cannot quit the Bastiodon. The good news is look at the Smackdowns here. These Smackdowns just do pathetic damage now. Oh my goodness. The whole point of Bastiodon is it's a very bulky mon that can output a tremendous amount of fast move pressure. But his fast move pressure is reduced in this season. In comes the Cresselia. Surf actually KOs. Back in comes Bastiodon. Bastiodon, if they can farm down before I make 3 moves, they win. But watch this. Part of why I included the battles versus the Basti is just to show what a shell of his former self it is. I'm able to make it to Surf after Surf, and guess what? After Surf, we get to a third Surf here. Bastiodon in absolute shambles. And now I can switch in the Goodra. Anytime Bastiodon throws a move, it's guaranteed to be at least 2 Smackdowns away. So as long as I'm within 6 turns of my Aqua Tail, which I am, the game is instantly over. Because Aqua Tail will be able to pick up the knockout. Yeah, Basti, just not the move this season. As his fast move pressure being reduced really honestly makes it a bit of a sitting duck. We move to the next match, Shadow Donphan versus Umbreon. Umbreon, a Pokemon that we're starting to see a little bit more of over time. Foul Play will connect. I can survive that, and let's start boosting up this damage with a Trailblaze. Trailblaze into the Umbreon does get shielded, and that of course means that now I can fire off boosted body slams, and I'm able to get to these pretty quickly. They're going to go for the Foul Play. I'm just going to keep farming, and I actually decided to go for another Trailblaze. I think potentially going for double body slam is the better play there. They can survive the Trailblaze and make one final move, but I'm more than happy to play for Switch. Even though my back 2 Pokemon both do well against flyers, they themselves form a pretty powerful core. So if you're able to get switch advantage, you're usually going to do pretty well for yourself. Body Slam does so much damage. In comes the Lantern. In the back, it is Clodsire. And I believe I should be in a pretty decent spot here. Goodra is going to fire off the Aqua Tail. I know that I don't die to an Earthquake. It does a lot, but I can hang on. So even though I don't have shields, I'm feeling pretty good in this moment. Opponent will go for the Earthquake, and suddenly I realize they're going to be able to farm me down. If I was running a better IV Goodra, I would be able to hang on here. But unfortunately, my bad IVs come back to bite me, and that's actually going to cost me this game. If I was running a high-ranked Goodra, I can survive that, and I would be fine. But unfortunately, I'm not, and I end up getting swept by a Clodsire in the end game. So very unfortunate game over for me. Hopping into the final match, what a lead. Shadow Donphan versus Toxapex. Opponent is going to save switch to Feraligatr. I get 3 Mud Slaps of energy on the Donphan and then bring in Lantern to absorb the Gator's energy. They go for the Crunch. I should be able to throw the Surf as soon as I get it and outpace. Suddenly, I'm doubting my counts. How did they get to a crunch? They only did 5, but they actually ended up hydroing, anticipating that I would go for the move. Now here, the game gets to teach me how to redo charge moves because I did end up just fully lagging out of a battle, and when I restarted the app, oh my goodness, there's a ride-on in the back, and when I came back into the app, it said battle could not be recovered, so I refreshed game data to try and make that better, but unfortunately for my opponent, they've picked a team that's ABA weak to Mud Slap, so this Donphan is fully about to sweep. In comes the Toxapex, and look at the Mud Slaps. I'm firing off another Trailblaze. Let's keep boosting. They're going to get farmed down. In comes the Ride-On. Absolutely deleted. Shadow Donphan able to take that win thanks to some unbelievable boosted fast move pressure. All in all, this mod is an insane amount of fun to use. Having tried a lot of the different ground types, Gastrodon is definitely more consistent, but I think Shadow Donphan is way more fun to use. Both get completely destroyed by flyers, so their meta rolls are a little limited in that regard just because they aren't as flexible as some other picks like Feraligatr, which has play in basically every matchup. However, Shadow Donphan can really catch opponents off guard, and as we saw time and time again, boosted Mud Slap, if your opponent doesn't have a Mud Slap resist, can completely run through their entire team. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.